Hey everybody, I'm going to quickly introduce myself, and then I'm going to let this gentleman over here tell you his story, and then we're going to get into it. We're going to talk today about the future of banking and how things have changed post-COVID. I'm Marc Peter Davis, managing partner of Interplay. Interplay is a startup ecosystem. We have an early-stage venture capital fund, an incubator. We, I believe, have the largest platform of services for venture-backed companies in America, things like commercial and health insurance, accounting, tax, CFO, marketing, et cetera. I run a podcast, which you can find there, Innovation with Marc Peter Davis, where I interview VCs and entrepreneurs. And we just launched a family office for folks who are out there looking to raise capital for their funds. There's a bunch of other stuff. If you want to tap into any of those resources, you can find all of that at interplay.vc. All right. Stuart Cook, you are up. You want to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. My name is Stuart Cook, Chief Digital Product Officer at Valley Bank. I've been with Valley for 2.5 years. Previous to that, 15 years in fintech with a couple of startups. Excited to be here today.
Great. Well, thanks for being here. This is my first large gathering foray post-COVID. Is it yours?
This is my second one.
Ah, so you're the super spreader who's bringing it to the event. Thank you. In the context of COVID, banking got hit. Everything changed.
Yeah.
High level, how did Valley Bank adapt when the pandemic started? Because I feel like the whole industry has been turned upside down.
Yep. We really had to scramble, to be honest. So when you think about how a bank runs, there's actually a lot of people behind the sort of interaction that you might have online or in a branch. There are processing centers and all kinds of different functions who were very used to going to an office to do their work. So a lot to do in a short amount of time to enable remote working for what had been a very traditional kind of industry. But then when you think about the customers that we serve and the impact that the pandemic was having on them, again, there was a lot for us to do. So we have a kind of traditional distribution network. We're a community bank, so we have branches in our communities. And all of a sudden, we had to think about how we made those branches safe for our customers and how we could enable them to run their businesses, get paid, pay people, and go about their lives in the kind of new normal.
So what did you guys do? Because obviously the branches are now a problem.
Yeah, we at the height of the pandemic, we had a third of our branches were closed, a third were appointment only, and a third were drive-through. And we spent a lot of time thinking, where was the appropriate branch distribution there to serve as many customers as possible. And then we really encouraged customers to use our digital channels. So we saw a huge growth in the sort of utilization of digital.
Now we saw with COVID tremendous adoption from demographics that did not transact over the web. We're involved in an e-commerce company named Burrow. They do direct-to-consumer couches. And people who were buying furniture only in stores are suddenly now having it shipped because they're afraid to go out and everything else. One, did you see new demographics coming online? And two, what happened as the vaccine got rolled out? Because one thing that we're curious about in the tech industry is, are those cohorts, those demographics, going to stay online, or are they going to go back to in-person?
Yeah, so we definitely saw this. So a third of transactions in a branch are checks, people depositing checks. So just think about that. Like it's just ingrained in people. So we saw a huge kind of uptick in people using technologies to deposit checks and to process their payments.
These were the mobile check deposit thing kind of took off?
So mobile check deposit, but also businesses will put machines into businesses so they can do high volume check depositing. So we saw a big uplift in that. And we definitely saw consumers migrating to the channel. So we saw a significant lift of people just actively using the channel to manage their finances, where perhaps they may have gone into a branch previously.
And did the trends dip down after the vaccine came out, or did you see, continued adoption?
Well, I think this is the interesting thing about, how banking will change as we come out of the pandemic, because we've seen it recalibrate. So actual branch traffic is down 25%, but there are still people going back into branches. And as we think about how we serve customers and give them the right services, personally, I want to get low-value transactions out of the branches. Don't come in to deposit a check. But where you have a high-value transaction, something that's meaningful for you, you need to talk to someone about a particular problem or opportunity that you're working on. Those are the conversations that we want in branch. Right? We want to help people. As a service delivery, it makes sense for certain demographics to be talked through various parts of their sort of financial services journey. But that's how we see the future of branches, much more high-value kind of interactions.
So do you think this is a industry-wide pattern? We're going to see reduced branch traffic. Does it mean there'll be fewer branches across the board for everybody, or do they serve as a loss leader for marketing? Like, how do the banks think about it?
Traditionally, branches are a really effective way of servicing customers and building your distribution as a bank, right? That's typically the old model for doing this. Like retail, face-to-face retail's not going anywhere. Like we've seen, .com brands actually put high street presence in, so you can look at Warby Parker and such. We're seeing, Chase and some of the really big money center banks still all in on their branch networks. I personally think for banks like ours that are in communities, some of the physical presence is really necessary, but it's about having the right kind of interactions in those branches.
So how do you incentivize customers coming in with a low-value transaction, something that's not profitable for you, to not come in? How do you get folks who are to deposit a check from their mobile phone? What behavioral stuff are you guys putting in place?
So many moons ago, I worked for a very large bank in the UK, and we were, nothing to do with the pandemic. We were thinking about how can we drive adoption of some of these technologies, and we talked about the kind of journey that some customers would go on. So we had, a very expensive internet banking site and proposition, and yet when we looked at the data, 40% of people would log in, look at their balance, and log off. Right. And there was an evolution, really, of people understanding the value proposition, that they could make those payments, that they could move money around. And it really is, I think, incumbent on banks these days to be much more in an outcome mindset, to help customers understand the outcomes that they're looking to achieve, rather than thinking about outputs. So these kind of lagging indicators of the number of people that have come into a branch to deposit a check, and actually start thinking about, well, why are they coming in to do that, and then leading them through that process. So there are tricks that the industry uses to, provide more kind of value.
What's your favorite trick that no one knows you're doing to them that's bedazzling people into doing something you want? You're a product guy. What's flashy button have you put where? I mean,
we've seen sharing value back. So if you're using online channels, it is a lower cost for us to service, and so providing more interest rates, better payment back on that.
So you get better economics if you use digital. That's fantastic. Okay. All right. You guys, this was a big transition because I feel like the tech industry, the banking industry, has become a tech industry now. I think that's a transition that is pre-existing banks are begrudgingly facing. Right. The selling cash is a commodity. Banking service are a commodity. But when I choose a bank and look at these assets and I look at the space as an investor, we're very focused on the user experience and the technology behind it. What has changed? We know you guys are building front-end technology, obviously. Everyone has to now to acclimatize to post-COVID era. What has changed internally? What tools do you guys use? I feel like this is a moment where it forced a lot of the older banks that were just doing so well they didn't want to bother changing it to adapt. What tools are you guys using you never thought you'd use? What startups are now penetrating all the banks that everyone should be watching? What's happening inside?
Wow. So we got 10 minutes, so buckle up, everyone.
I have more, too, so you better go fast.
We, everything's changing. So, yes, digital's about the sort of customer experience or the app or the online kind of thing that you're interacting with, but it goes right away through the stack. So when you look at a bank like Chime, actually what they're really excelling at is their marketing and their acquisition and their conversion of customers. It's a completely different mindset to a traditional bank. And there's lots of enabling technologies in the background there. So right away through from using kind of digital technologies to enable traditional manual processes where it might be, we're regulated.
Give me some names. What services are you guys using that getting adopted?
There's a company based here in New York that I love called Alloy. They just raised $100 million, a unicorn valuation.
Awesome.
And we use those to enable straight-through processing when you open an account. So 5 years ago, a human would touch everything in the back office, and now 75% of those applications just go straight through, no human involved.
That's amazing. So let's talk about cybersecurity. It's obviously a topic in the news. Everyone's afraid of getting all their stuff hijacked. I woke up at 4 a.m. one day and someone was breaking into my phone and trying to steal everything. I happened to wake up and see it while it was happening.
Wow.
So this is a real thing. Before we get into what you guys are doing, when people are doing business planning within a bank, what budget per customer or across the board are they thinking, well, this is our loss ratio for hacks and cybersecurity breaches? How do they think about cybersecurity in a business planning mindset?
Well, that's a zinger. So
I didn't tell you about that one ahead of time.
Look, the banking industry is under attack from kind of cyber threats. It's a huge issue for all banks. There is not a payment network that exists that does not have fraud on it, and the question's right. There is built into the operation of banks and of payment networks is an acceptable level of risk.
Yeah, what is that? Is it like 5 cents on the dollar is assumed to be stolen? I mean, what's happening right now?
So, I mean, it depends. So if you were looking at something like Zelle as a money movement.
It's PayPal between banks, right?
Yep. It's kind of under 1% that you're gonna live with. Like if you go north of 1%, so
wow,
like five basis points. So
okay, and how much money is transacting through something like Zelle? So when you see
billions.
a percent disappear, it's a lot of money, right?
Yep.
Who's stealing it? Is it mainly small rogue actors, or is this some cybersecurity, professional group of hackers in some basement somewhere?
It's all of the above, right? So you'll see very opportunistic kind of frauds happening and fraud rings, and then you'll also see major groups based out of certain countries.
Yeah, and there's certain countries where people they're minting it. This is a business, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they're like they have a recruiting team and they're hiring people to come in. This is an operation. It's not ad hoc.
No. It's
that's fascinating. So does this get solved? Right? There's a lot of security plays. We see companies all the time trying to solve pieces of this. Is this like computer viruses where in 1980 or 90 or whatever it was, McAfee is battling whatever virus comes out the next day and it's a perpetual arms race? Or is there some point where this gets buttoned up?
It's an arms race. So, I mean, even when you look at some of the emerging technologies like blockchain, you're going to find bad actors trying to break that thing. So I think it's a constant arms race.
So winning is just keeping it in check.
Absolutely.
Wow, fascinating. Okay. That's where all of your money is going, folks. That interest payment you wanted, it's all going to the hackers. You guys also at Valley Bank have a unique market focus, right? If I'm not mistaken, you guys play in cannabis.
We do.
Can you give a little overview on that?
Yeah, so we're really interested in some of the emerging and developing markets in the country, and cannabis is a particularly unique market because it's legal in a number of states, but federally illegal. And it creates a huge problem for the folks that are, trying to run businesses in those states. So because it's federally illegal, the payments are not carried over Visa and MasterCard. So there are literally stores in various states with millions of dollars of cash going through their tills each day who have a problem about how they get that legitimate cash into the banking network.
Yeah, I've heard it was an armored truck game, right? You basically had a $5 million, $10 million stash in the back of the office. Armored truck comes and takes it, but there's no way to actually get banked.
So there are banks operating in this space. Valley's one. We're probably the largest bank, certainly a national charter bank, helping businesses right now. Yes, if you are running a cannabis business right now, you have a problem in terms of cash, and it does involve guys with machine guns in Suburbans. But we're in the process right now of developing a payment solution for those businesses so that they can migrate away from cash.
So I know this is in regulatory limbo. Why can the banks not just, in my mind, do the simple thing of banking someone within a state, not moving it out of state? That seems to be the paradigm that's happening for all the tech things going on. We're investors in Leaflink, and they're doing basically product supply chain vertically within each state. Each state is a silo, and they go top to bottom for the distribution of the product. So why are all the banks, not particularly regional banks or local banks, not just saying, hey, we do cannabis? What else is there to this? Because at the end of the day, it's just a business with money.
So we're a heavily regulated industry. And so what we have done is got the regulators extremely comfortable with our KYB, so know your business, and anti-money laundering. So when we take the cash from the business and put it into the bank, we know all the way from the seed where that cash has been from the supply chain. And one of the areas we're thinking about is there are a lot of multi-state kind of operators who need a solution that works across states. And that's one of the exciting areas that I think we have a good solution for.
I think you guys are making a great strategic move because I had Ryan Smith, the founder of Leaflink, which I feel like is going to be the Coinbase of cannabis. Is the right way I think about it? On my podcast, and he said the game right now is everyone's setting up fiefdoms in their states, and they actually don't want federal regulation to be lifted because they want to entrench. Because once it's federally approved, which is going to happen, all the national brands are going to move in and break everybody up. So is that the thinking for you guys? You're kind of grabbing land now before this becomes an open market to dominate a category?
I was with the team yesterday, and we're looking at the segmentation of the industry, and I agree with you, there'll be some consolidation happening. I think what's fascinating is how we help local entrepreneurs and mom-and-pop businesses grow as well in those states. And so the game for us is to create the capabilities in our stack that enables us to solve the problems for the multi-state operators, but also can uplift the local craft cannabis was our.
There you go. Okay, we're down to a minute. I got one, maybe two questions. If you were king, not president, what would you change on the cannabis side of banking? If you were in charge of all the regulators.
Well, for me, what I would change is the ability to, move this money over electronic means. I think that's the key to unlocking a lot of the business.
All right, same question, a little different, last 20 seconds. If you were king, not president, what would you change about regulation for the entire banking industry?
Wow.
One thing.
Access to capital.
What does that mean?
So I would look for a way that we can make it easier for people to access capital from a regulatory point of view. So as we think about the know your customer, know your business stuff, that regulatory stuff's hard.
It's too much red tape. Thank you for listening, everybody. Stuart Cook.
Thank you.